Welcome to Experimental Theology. This is Lucian Nelson, your residential edgelord and dark magician. Hey, it's one thing I hate. It's girl defined. It's Christian fundamentalism, which is made manifest on YouTube. And I will say this, and I will say this: 90% of Christian YouTubers are Pharisees who make up rules, rely on man-made rules, traditions, their own quote-unquote discernment and knowledge to control people and put people in their place and exclude people who are different or live in the modern day world with a fetish from the 1950s, aka girl defined. The modern day world's got a lot of fucking issues. I'm not going to deny that whatsoever. But, like, returning to this idealized point in history, which a lot of these far right Christian YouTubers want to do, they want to get rid of all the Italy and want to put men and women into boxes based on their gender and make blanket statements on what it means to be a man or what it means to be a woman. And I freaking despise this. Here's the thing. There is so much room for debate about what gender roles or dynamics works for you because it varies from culture to culture, it varies from person to person. We all have the feminine and the masculine within us, and it manifests in a billion different ways. And if you read the New Testament, it's full of that. Paul's talking about like how you have all these men and women alike, of all these spiritual gifts, and they're contributing to the church. Paul ordained women to deacons, pastors, and apostles. Women prophesied in the early church, and it wasn't until Nicaea we started getting a more organized, more like orthodoxy that started putting things into proper right, proper function, and all that stupid natural law shit. Really, what the early church was, I think Christians should base their faith off the Bible and reason. I mean, if you get into Anglicanism, there's the whole stools and pillars of the Christian church: tradition, Bible, science slash logic, and experience. And I feel like the modern day church in America, such as the conservative ones, are overlying on tradition and interpretation of gospel over experience and science. That's how we know men and women are very different on a day-to-day basis. Your average man can be more similar to a woman than a woman can be similar to other women, or a man can be similar to other men than he. We are all unique. We are all complete, like, marvelous works of God, marvelous works of the Holy Spirit that manifests in so many different ways. Some women get more in common with guys than she can have with other women. Same thing goes for guys relating with women more than men. I want to talk about archetypes here. I want to talk about archetypes. I've seen so many Christians who bash like modern day media, modern day storytelling, and the monomyth we all live out on a day-to-day basis that you have to be put in these boxes to be Christian. I mean, if you read the stories of the saints, it's full of weird magi, storytellers, freaking magic users, adventurers, explorers, scientists, philosophers, and new gender boundaries. There's so many people throughout, and once again, I'm not a Jesus freak. I not my issue is Catholic Church, but there's a lot of whimsy when you read the stories about this culture viewed what it meant to be a hero and what it meant to be a like someone who made a difference. So you get Hildegard of Bingen, who was an exorcist, a high nun, a philosopher, a preacher, a noblewoman, a bureaucrat, a politician, the Holy Roman Empire. We have women preaching the New Testament. We have deacons. We have women who are like apostles and they ran around entire countries preaching the gospel, risking life and neck, converting entire villages. That speaks to me. The entire story of the early Christian church really speaks to me. And there's a lot of magic and whimsy in early Christianity with all the folk tales and stories people got into. There's a lot of good mythology that went in with like early Christianity, whether it be East or West, all the way up until like the late Middle Ages. Just a lot of fun stories that shouldn't be taken seriously, but they instill a sort of mythos in a imprint on our imagination that's furthered by Christian fantasy writers and from Christian fantasy to normal fantasy. I mean, there's nothing but gender bending in the lives of the saints, the scripture. I'm not just saying saints from Catholicism or Orthodoxy. I'm talking about like saints from Protestantism, Jewish saints. We have all these people who had direct connection to the divine and wanted to make the world a better place. And that's what makes someone a saint, in my opinion. And that can be a non-believer, that can be a Jew, that can be an atheist. The I would recommend people who want to read more about the hero's journey from a woman's perspective. I think it was the feminine hero. There is a woman writer, I forget her name, something Steinberg. She wrote a feminist version of the hero's journey, the hero of a thousand faces. It's a really good read, and it's really inspiring, and I encourage people to take a look at it. But I would say what makes a hero is no different than what makes. There is no gender requirement to be a hero. A hero is a hero, and there's no different. It looks this way for women, looks that way for men. Fuck that shit. A hero is a hero. You can be a male nurse, and be a hero, and you can be a woman militiaman fighting the forces of ISIS in the Middle East, fighting for your freedom and of your community and freedom from oppression and being slaves and taking the gun to fanatical Islamic extremists. Protests were militias inspire me. They're sisters of battle. They were like something out of 40K. I love it. Does a really good job of taking heroes and such talent and stories that could change the world for the better, both the church and society, and they squash it and they destroy it and then by forcing it into boxes. And don't do that. When you have a talent, when you have a magical gift, whether that be incredible creativity, incredible preaching, incredible leadership, don't shove it away, harness it and use it for the best of the community. Once again, Paul talks about if you have a spiritual gift, harness it and use it for the best of the community and the world and the kingdom of God. And that applies to women and men. If you're a woman and you're a great preacher, be a preacher. If you want to be a pastor, go for it. You want to be a deacon, go for it. You want to be a stay-at-home dad, go for it. You want to be a male nurse, go for it. You want to be a soldier, go for it. The Bible is full of gender bending. And there's such diversity in the human soul that God calls each of us to be a hero in our own unique way. My argument to all the fundamentalists, whether those be traditional Catholics or evangelical fundamentalists, God changes all the time. God is eternal and his core truths are true, but how we interpret those things changes drastically over time from culture to culture, period to period, empire to empire. The church is a living organism. It evolves and adapts over time. I mean, you don't want to go back to the early church for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons we don't want to live like we did 2,000 years ago and that we've theologically moved on since then. There's a lot of good reasons why we should keep moving forward and developing new theology and new philosophy. As psychology, science keeps proving to us, God is so much bigger than our own preconceived notions. Each person is a universe within themselves and is a direct creation of the divine. And the more Christians acknowledge when they look at someone, they look at the face of God, going Genesis here, I see you as the face of God, you realize God is infinite and he makes his creation to reflect that infinite potential. Unity within diversity, diversity within unity. Diversity within unity, unity within diversity. It's a beautiful concept. And the church should be based on holiness and spiritual. The church hierarchy should be based on spirituality, faith, and holiness, not gender norms. That's my hot take. And there's some intricacies. If you Christianity does not exist as a monolith, there's a lot of diversity of thought, and that's the way the church should be. Honestly, I think we should have theological diversity and live in the live. Romans 14:15 literally tells about that. It's all the way back in the beginning of Christianity. Paul is saying 90% of day-to-day life is up to debate and is gray. 98% of day-to-day life, even back then, was morally gray. That applies to relationships, that applies to sexuality, that applies to a lot of things. There's some caveats, there's some general rules, but that's the general focus. Just don't let anything become an idol and take you away from God. And I think the church needs to train people, the lay people, to be the priesthood of all believers. We need the priesthood of all believers more so than we need the ordained priesthood. Every Christian needs to be fighting to make the world a better place. Every church needs to be going out there in the margins, helping people. That means not suppressing talent where there's talent. It could mean creating an entire generation of young Tolkien-like writers to tell stories in fantasy to inspire us and bring us together and give us hope. It can look like going back into those ancient ways of reading the ancient books and the ancient philosophy of the early church and bring it to a modern day world. Like, we need to study other religions, other metaphysics, other philosophies. I mean, all these pagan practices, there's merit to them. There's so many ancient philosophies and worldviews and philosophers from Buddha, Zoroastrianism that have such an impact on so many people's lives. It's worth borrowing from and learning from and bringing all things back into God. God is kathos. universal to all cultures, all peoples, which is really fucking hilarious that Christianity often tries to dominate and make one culture the supreme for other. We need to learn to discernment. We need to learn that every culture has its own needs and qualities, and we should try and make God universal to everyone instead of trying to make everyone the same. We need to learn other cultures and other philosophies and bring them into Christianity where they can find their wholeness, and that's biblical. Everything finds their root in God. One thing I think we all need to work on is spiritual people. And Master Eckhart, one of the greatest Christian mystics of the West, said all mystics speak the same language. All mystics serve the same God, regardless of what religion they're in. Because mysticism is being in touch with the force, being in touch with the divine, and seeking personal communion with God over rigid religious rules. We see this in numerous religious texts. Even the Bible has it in there. It's more important to have a personal relationship with God than to be right in the eyes of your religious community. I mean, just look at Jesus. He reflects this. Look at the Buddha. He reflects this. There's a deep magical current, and science is finally catching up with this with quantum physics. The more we study, like, thaumaturgy, ancient religions, ancient philosophies, and ancient pagan practices, even Christianity, there's a lot of things that are proving, hey, there's some scientific merit to this. And I do agree with a friend of mine who once said magic is this technology we don't understand yet. Maybe parts of our evolution we haven't unlocked yet, and it's worth tapping into instead of condemn. How do we use this, whatever you call it, science or magic or something in between? How do we use this for the benefit of humanity and to bring God's kingdom into the earth? That's my take. um, but yeah, there's also a lot of powers in stories, films, games. That's modern day theater art, modern day theater craft, modern day magic being turned into reality. And D&D, I will keep on saying this, is group astral projection. D&D is group fucking astral projection. Get that in your fucking heads. You are literally creating a magical universe for people to exist in and role plan using dice to impact that world. It's so true on so many levels. Your imagination is magic. Human beings are co-creators. We're sub-creators. We can create entire worlds, whether that be an imagination or fantasy, and modern day gaming has turned is magic because we've turned the imaginary world of D&D into video games. So yeah, imagination is magic. Sub-creation, Tolkien talked about all the time how we can create worlds and stories that other people can live in. But yeah, we need to understand the power of story and myth, and not water down stories and myth for ideology, whether it be far right Catholic ideology that hates women being heroes and wearing pants and fighting in war, or extreme leftist ideology that seeks to tone down and numb the monomyth for its own legalistic, fucking moralistic identity politics. The true storytelling, true myth should inspire you, and it should not be tied to politics. It should inspire you just because of what it's the depth and the brilliance of it. That's real art. Real storytelling, real art inspires you and does not create division. It brings people together. Star Wars, Final Fantasy, D&D, Lord of the Rings, all proof of this. At the end of the day, if I'm ranting, I just think gaming art is a spirit. Creating stories is the most magical thing humans can do. I think we're in a golden age with that right now, but we're wasting our talents, our tools on ideology with all the technology and imagination people have. And AI is magic. AI is magical science. And how we use it could create a huge golden age for artists and creatives. And can maybe lead to some form of the Federation from Star Trek. I don't know. But, yeah, no. I guess what I'm trying to summarize with all of this is, this entire video is my opening for this new channel. And I wanted to say, these are the things I'll be talking about. These are the things I think as spiritual people, whether you be Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, that we as spiritual people in society should take note of and we should work on. And we should use to better ourselves, society, and I encourage everyone Be the Gandalf of your own story. Be the Frodo. Be the Luke Skywalker. Get into archetypes. Really get into mythology. Get into storytelling. Live your life like it's a giant fucking role playing game. That's like the most quintessential thing I can say about magic and what a magical worldview looks like. You treat your life like a role playing game that we've all forgotten we're fucking playing. Life takes on new meaning, new purpose. It makes life a lot more invigorating and gets you up in the morning and drives you to be the hero of your own journey, to be the co creator of your own reality with the divine. And that's my thing. Once again, we're co creators with the divine, what do you ever want to call that? God, gods, whatever I call it, God. As a co creator, you can build. You're no one's puppet. You're no one's slave. You have free will, you have agency, and you work with the divine to build the reality that you're put on this earth to create. It's kind of a weird synchronism that's hard to explain. But I think that's what we've all done. I mean, I view the universe as like God is the dungeon master. We're all players in that D&D. You know, just things- I really do believe that. This has been a channel. I got more content on the way for this kind of stuff. You know, also things. Let's see all there. Keep being you guys. Keep being you. Keep being you.